Talk about this movie here. And really, we're not so much going to talk about the movie as we are going to talk about the. As we're going to talk about, well. So, let's talk about this. So this was announced in 2019. Not just this movie, but the casting of Halle Bailye. She was like the only consistent thing that had been talked about this movie. Then, of course, there was nothing, and then the world lost its collective mind. So, um, every argument that had already come out had already been done before. But now we're sort of at this sort of crossroads where now it's been reunited, but I think it's even more fired up than before. Why, I honestly couldn't tell you, but there are sort of like a bunch of different camps, and at some point it all sort of comes down to one spot. There's the more extremes, which is, yes, queen, slay, we got this. The others is that more don't quite like them coloreds in my movies. Now, those are two very extreme groups, and they nowhere near really represent the majority. Then you go a step down, and like, this is proper. This is like, proper representation. The other side is like, this is SJW pandering. The other side is. And it goes down and down and down before you just most of the people who are like, oh, I'm really interested in this casting. Other people go like, you know what? Disney's gonna mess this up because they've always messed it up. They've messed up just about every live action remake they've done so far. That's sort of where I am in regards to this. And ultimately, there's nothing to be said about this movie because it's not out yet. But judging the past track record, this will be lackluster. It will not be through any fault of the actors. Halle Bailey is possibly the best choice. I don't know. I didn't really had a casting choice for this. Like, I really don't give much of a thought about live action remakes in terms of who I would cast for them, because to me, the animated movies were just fine. Because Disney only picks the ones that already made a lot of money and were already critically acclaimed. You'll never see them do, so far, something like, say, The Black Cauldron, which they should do. They should definitely do The Black Cauldron, or even something like Treasure Planet or Atlantis. Like, you hear these vague rumors, but nothing concrete. Like, there's a working script for The Sword and the Stone. There's been one for like the past 6 years, alright? Like, they've been going over a script for that one for ages, and there's no reason to not do a remake of that. It's The Sword and Stone. It's an Arthurian legend, alright? Might as well. If I had to pick, though, I would be way more excited and even accepting and even trusting of any other studio doing a live-action Little Mermaid with a black Ariel. I just would. It has nothing to do with anything other than I don't trust Disney, which is sad. But really, this is lazy. This ultimately is just lazy. Anytime you race swap a popular character in a story that is mostly going to be the exact same story as before, is lazy, because Disney has spent years upping this brand, upping this character, as Ariel, as the white red-haired girl. People go, well, they made her hair red so it plays off the green. That doesn't matter. The fact remains that Ariel's popularity was best known as the little white red-haired mermaid girl. That was it. Okay? That's where the merchandise comes from, that's where everything. And now that all of it's come together, that she's at such a high popularity, now we're going to race swap. And so all the work is just already been done. All the work to make a character great, make a character timeless, has already been done. People go, well, this is this generation's Ariel. I'm like, well, that also doesn't quite seem to work, because we're just telling the same story. Alright? This is going to be possibly the exact same story. Alright, there might be like a little trick here at the end where Ursula has a slightly tragic backstory, or maybe even a more tragic backstory, more in line with that book, or whatever. Alright, or maybe she won't marry Eric at the end of this. Like, they'll do like the Tangled one, and a couple years later, she said yes. Or maybe they'll do something interesting with it. But overall, this is going to be the exact same story, so I don't see the point. The reason, also, I would have to say, one issue I have with this is this kind of in some ways invalidates other princesses of color that Disney's put out. And not just, say, Pocahontas or Esmeralda, but Mulan, Tiana, Moana, Raya, and Encanto, Luca, Coco, Turning Red. These are all stories starring leads of color. And so now you just decide, well, now we're going to race swap this other one because it was still such a success, so let's do it again. Alright, why? Why? Were all these other characters not good enough? That is sort of the question I have to have now. This is race swapping a character is something that I feel you really can't do with a main character because there's more scrutiny. There was scrutiny when Jimmy Olsen was turned into a black character for the Supergirl TV show. There was scrutiny when Jim Gordon was recast as black for Robert Pattinson's Batman. I don't know, and why do we keep doing it for redheads? Just why we keep doing it for redheads? But honestly, there's always like certain criticism for race changes for even other characters like Ra's al Ghul in Christopher Nolan's Batman universe, the Ancient One in Doctor Strange, and so on. We've always criticized. Aquaman was criticized. Jason Momoa's casting was criticized for like 5 minutes, but Jason Momoa was such a radically different change from Aquaman, from Arthur Curry, who often, to a layman, feels kind of bland. Also, even to me, at times can feel a bit bland. But I don't quite get this choice. Again, from my point of view, the argument for representation falls short when we already have representation with other characters. Again, if another studio had done this, I would be more on board with it. If I trusted Disney to not screw this up, to not be themselves, to not really hammer home the nostalgia bait, to really undercut this story, because they're going to. They've always done it with every story they've done so far. They've managed to mess it up or miss the mark in one way or another, through no fault of the actors. Like, even watching Pinocchio, Tom Hanks does a great performance. Alright? Character's a bit weird. The movie's a bit weird, but everyone does a great performance. I expect Halle Bailye will turn out a great performance. I expect the same from the actors. The only actor that I would say turned out a bad performance in these live-action remakes is Emma Watson. But ultimately, this doesn't mean anything. Alright? We're arguing the casting choice. This is nothing about Halle Bailey's character. Honestly, if she didn't take this role, I would call her an idiot. Unless she just didn't want to deal with the drama. And by the drama, I mean people having to white knight for it, people criticizing her for it. There's apparently a Facebook group like Christians Against Little Mermaid casting, which I don't think was an actual group. Could be. I couldn't find it, so I don't know. But at the same time, I'm more upset with everyone already jumping to this movie's defense and jumping to criticize this movie. This movie will more than likely be bad. It will be. Just because it's Disney, and they keep making bad live-action remakes, even when the answer is so obvious. But I expect great musical performances. If the music fails in this, then I will just label the whole thing an F. It will be the first F I ever give for a Disney live-action movie. But I think ultimately we'll just have to wait and see, drop all preconceived notions whether this is good, whether this is bad. It just is until the actual movie comes out. Will Halle Bailey give a great performance or a bad one? We won't know yet. This teaser tells us nothing other than Disney keeps making the same generic teasers over and over again. Just enough nostalgia bait to get you going, oh, I remember this! And nothing else. Alright? To be fair, if she'd missed that part of your world, everyone keeps talking about that B part. That B part doesn't matter. That part of your world that I probably butchered is what matters. But anyway, we've spent enough time talking about everything and nothing at the same time. So let's bring this video to close here. What do you guys think of Halle Bailey's casting? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Did you have a better choice? Do you think Disney's going to be Disney and this is going to be terrible? Apparently, Disney had no intention of casting anyone but a black girl for this, which I think would have been better as a whole blind casting, because there could be some young Asian talent out there, or Hispanic talent, or Ukrainian talent, or any talent that could have really breathed life into this. And I don't know anyone who's bothered saying that mermaids can't be black. That has nothing to do with this issue here. Other arguments of representation don't matter in this context unless you can cite something that is similar to this in the same way of race-changing Bruce Wayne or Clark Kent. Alright? So, feel free to disagree, agree, or whatever. Hopefully you agree. Or you at least have something interesting to say. So, this is about Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching. As always, may your fandom serve you well.